Everyone thinks a failed prophecy kills a cult. It doesn't. Sometimes it makes the believers stronger. I've read the logbooks myself. The documents are archived now, studied by psychologists for decades. But the raw tension, the moment-by-moment fear and hope, that only hits you when you understand the timeline. This is the story of the Seekers, a small group of believers who sat in a house in a Chicago suburb, waiting for the end of the world. Not because they were gullible, because they were desperate to believe they mattered. September 1954. A woman named Dorothy Martin, though she used the pseudonym Marion Keech in what would become the most famous study of cognitive dissonance ever conducted, began receiving messages. Not through prayer, through automatic writing. Her hand moved across the page, she claimed, guided by an intelligence from the planet Clarion. The messages were specific, urgent. They said a catastrophic flood would destroy North America on December 21st, 1954. The Seekers weren't fringe lunatics operating in a basement. They were middle-class professionals, a doctor, an engineer, housewives, educated people who had begun to feel that the world they inherited post-war America with its nuclear anxiety and spiritual emptiness had left them behind. Clarion offered something the suburbs couldn't, meaning a secret knowledge. They weren't victims of fate, they were chosen. By November 1954, they'd rented a house together. They quit their jobs, sold their possessions. The messages said that a spacecraft would arrive before the flood, a rescue ship. They'd be lifted to safety. Their families thought they were insane. Their employers thought they were thieves. But the Seekers knew something no one else did, or so they believed. Remember, they didn't know yet what December 21st would actually bring. The messages grew more elaborate. A being named the Guardians provided instructions. Don't speak to outsiders. Remove all metal from your body, zippers, buttons, anything ferrous. The spacecraft would arrive at midnight on December 20th. They'd be aboard by 12:15 a.m. The precision mattered. Precision meant it was real. December 20th, 1954, 11:45 p.m. The house was silent. 7 core believers sat in the living room, dressed in plain clothes, no metal. They'd invited a team of observers, psychologists from the University of Minnesota, led by Leon Festinger. The researchers were there to document what would happen. They had no idea they were about to witness one of the most pivotal moments in cult psychology. Midnight came, no spacecraft. The believers sat, waited, 1 o'clock, 2, 3. The observers watched, pencils moving across paper. Dorothy Martin sat calmly, face steady. No panic, no doubt. She explained, the ship was running late. The psychologists wrote that down. 6 hours later, the sun rose over the Chicago suburbs on December 21st, 1954. The world had not flooded. No rescue ship had arrived. This is where most groups collapse. The cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. Reality contradicts the belief so directly that the mind breaks. People leave, the cult dies, but Festinger documented something stranger, something that would define how we understand cult psychology forever. The believers didn't abandon their faith, they doubled down. Within hours, Dorothy Martin received a new message. The spacecraft hadn't failed, the test had succeeded. The group's faith, their absolute belief, had prevented the catastrophe. They'd saved the world through their conviction. The flood was cancelled, the believers had won. And suddenly, the group that had hidden from the outside world became evangelists. They called the press. They wanted everyone to know. I've read Festinger's notes. The shift was instantaneous and total. The same believers who'd been terrified of ridicule now sought it out. They needed to convince others. Because if others believed, then their belief was validated. The external validation became the new prophecy. And it worked. The group didn't fracture. It intensified. What Festinger observed, and what he'd later theorize as cognitive dissonance reduction, became foundational to understanding how cults survive failure. When a prophecy fails catastrophically, the mind has 3 options: admit you were wrong, leave the group, or reinterpret the failure as a hidden success. The Seekers chose option 3, and it was terrifyingly effective. The group fractured eventually, not because the prophecy failed, but because external pressure mounted and members had different tolerance for ridicule. Some left, others stayed with Dorothy Martin for years. She continued receiving messages. The spacecraft continued to be delayed, but the core mechanism remained intact. Belief reinforced through group commitment, amplified by external mockery, validated by the group's continued existence. The Seekers' case became required reading in psychology departments. It showed that failed prophecy doesn't destroy cults, it reshapes them. The believers didn't lose faith, they lost the ability to doubt. And that's far more dangerous, because doubt is the only mechanism that allows people to leave. What strikes me reviewing the original research is how ordinary the believers were. They weren't seeking power or money. They were seeking permission to matter, permission to believe that their lives had cosmic significance. And when the universe failed to deliver, they simply rewrote the narrative. Because the alternative, admitting you'd abandoned your family and career for a lie, was psychologically impossible to bear. The seekers dispersed, but the pattern they established became a template. Every failed prophecy since Waco, Heaven's Gate, countless smaller groups has followed this same trajectory. Prophecy fails, reality contradicts belief, and instead of breaking, the group reinterprets, strengthens, becomes more insular, more committed. The external world doesn't understand, so the group must be right and the world must be wrong. December 21st, 1954 taught us something that should have changed how we understand human psychology forever. But it didn't. People still join cults, still sacrifice everything, still rewrite reality to protect their faith. Because the human need to belong, to matter, to be part of something larger than yourself, that need doesn't disappear when the evidence contradicts it. It just finds a new justification. The seekers wanted to be rescued. They believed a spacecraft was coming. When it didn't arrive, they didn't lose faith in the rescue. They simply decided the rescue had already happened, invisibly, psychologically, spiritually. They'd been saved by their own belief. And that realization, that terrible realization, locked them in place forever. The only way out was to admit the truth. And that's the one thing the mind will do anything to avoid. Subscribe. Each week we document how belief becomes prison and why people choose the chains.